Welcome back, guys. Maxim Grunin art. Maxim. I am finishing up the landscape painting project. This is like the very final steps. For here, example is that I am mixing a couple of midtones, and I am wanting to further enhance, lighten the trees, and make them a bit more filled with color information. It seems that they have some gray, colorful gray and browns, and movement towards nearly black color, but I think they could use just a little more colorful and lighter information to be even more three-dimensional, more expressive in terms of color. So just a bit more attention onto the lighter areas of the tree trunks. And yeah, that's the whole thing. Is with the finishing stages, with the finishing touches, everything gets a little bit of extra attention. Extra amount of energy is spent on further developing all of these different objects. The focus here is on closer foreground information, like the trees that appear to be closer and the trees behind them. How do I differentiate between them? So the foreground area, the close-up, the trees in the front, they are getting more colors, a little more detail, and more textured, thicker brush strokes on the surface, and that will extend them forward and separate them from the background ones. At this point, I am doing a lot of standing back and looking at the overall painting, and I'm finding areas that could use just a little bit more enhancing or a little bit more work. In this bit, I mixed highlight colors for the sunlit areas underneath the trees, and I want to just give them a little more accent of light. So this really bright mixture of yellow and white is helping me to highlight some areas within the light area even further. And there's a fine line between making it look a little too cartoony and that grass to be a little stylized or too stylized. So I'm being really careful about that. I want to keep more expressive, more almost nearly abstract surface on most of the parts of the picture, so that I am reliant on the expressiveness of color, brush stroke, and not relying on having to draw out in very detailed way some of these features. There's been already hours put in to the painting since the last video, and it's a fairly large size piece, 40 inches by 50 inches, and the amount of work that needs to go into it is substantial enough that I just plugged away at the canvas for a few more days, and then I left it to sit there so that I could observe and see what else is asking for my attention, what else could be improved. And so in this session I am coming back with the absolute last, almost last additions, and then it's supposedly the painting will be finished by the end of this session. And here are the clusters of leaves right in the foreground, somewhere in the front of the close-up foreground trees, and I am demonstrating the highlights that are coming in. So I mixed yellow with white, and I'm applying this really bright light yellow color onto the very top area of each one of these leafy clusters, foliage of the tree, and I'm applying it quite thickly, like a thick mark, a thick drop of paint. And the percent of that highlight is fairly small in relationship to the rest of the object, and so very small percent of highlight. And here's the final paint, and here's the finished piece. And yeah, a lot has been done. Everything is more or less together. The mass of dark, the mass of mid-tone, the mass of light. Let's look at the close-up of the painting. I kept the painting and the brush strokes and the surface fairly loose and expressive. I worked quite a bit on creating this see-through light, the light that's shooting through the foliage of the trees and peering from between the leaf clusters. So I really tried to make it a complex and satisfying and expressive shape. Everything, absolutely everything, has gotten this quality of a finished piece. I really went back into many areas and adjusted them in such a way that they look really well beside each other. And this is how big the painting is in comparison to me. So it's a really nice big size picture. You could, what's the difference size? Yeah, I'm overall I am quite satisfied with what happened there. I like that the painting has gotten a lot of thick, and like paint chunks like everywhere on it. It's got a really nice, expressive, rich feel. Yeah, mainly I didn't want to turn it into this too well developed surface, and I wanted expressiveness to be retained. There it is, the final painting, the final. And now I am setting out to maybe touch it up a little bit more and sign it and start a new project.